Your toughest co-parenting questions answered right here, right now. You're welcome. Mended Light. Welcome to Ask Us Anything, where you and I take questions from you, gentle viewers. Today we're talking about co-parenting.
Yeah.
And we have quite a bit of experience with this.
Yeah!
Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to ask the first question because I feel like it's more of a you should answer this one.
I'm excited. I'm ready.
I can tell. I could tell you're just bubbling and bursting. How do you create healthy boundaries when you're forced to co-parent with someone with whom trust and friendship are not options?
Yeah. So that is a super valid question. And here's the principle, here's an overall guiding principle when it comes to co-parenting, regardless of how your former partner chooses to show up. Mm-hmm. And of course, if they show up in a supportive, hey, we're a team sort of way, that's beautiful, that's wonderful, that's magical. Who wouldn't want that? The majority of the time, that's not the case. And I'm not going to pretend like it is, because people are hurt and they hold on to their wounds. And the truth is, they prioritize their own wounds over their children's well-being, right? And my hope and my prayer for everyone is that they get the support that they need so that they can prioritize the children, right?
Yeah.
But it is possible. I've lived that reality, right? Where I had a former partner that, it wasn't you, but I had a former partner who wasn't on the same page as me of focusing on what's the best interest of our child. There was a lot of hurt there. There was wounds. There was an attitude of, I'm going to make you pay, right?
Yeah. There was effort and time to get to a healthy place of let's focus on the child's needs
and that,
on their part. Yeah.
And that took years to get there. And so here's the guiding principle that I want to share. And I want to share it from a very real place, not from a fairy tale, oh, wouldn't that be nice place?
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of putting down defensiveness to co-parent from that way, even when the other co-parent doesn't meet you there. But I will share with you, I've seen this in my life and in other people's lives, the majority of the time, if you set the example, a lot of times the other parent does get to that place. And that principle is what is in the best interest of my child.
And,
right?
and that principle can be your guiding star in every situation. And that's what I love about guiding principles is, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in this situation? What about this? What about when that happens? It's like, well, if I have this as my center, I just keep coming back to that. Yeah. And I ask myself that question, and then I find the answer in this circumstance.
Yeah. And there's going to be times where they do something hurtful, and you feel hurt, and you're like, oh, I need to take a step back until I can get back to this center, right?
Yeah.
I need to take a pause or a break or not make a decision right now or not respond until I can get back to this center. And so, for example, I used that principle and I applied it to my life and I had a decision to make, regarding child support. And it's like, okay, in this situation and all the other factors, what is in the best interest of my child regarding child support? And I had a dear, dear friend who, different life circumstance, different dynamics, and she asked herself the same question regarding child support: what's in the best interest of my child? And we came to two completely different conclusions because they were different circumstances, but they were in alignment with the principle of what's in the best interest of my child. And so the what is in the best interest of the child. The how is going to depend on your circumstances. And if you need to go to court and fight some battle because that's in the best interest of your child, you do it. If you need to diffuse contention and take a step back because that's in the best interest of your child, you do it. I want to add one more thing to that, because sometimes we neglect ourselves as the parent in considering that universe of the child. But there is a co-principle there of how do I support myself and being the best parent I can, because that is what my child needs. And so it's not an either or, it's not self-sacrificing to the point of betrayal. because, oh, this is in the best interest of my child.
Right.
It is in the best interest of your child to have a loving, present, secure parent to the best of your ability with the life circumstances you have right now.
And that requires you looking after you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so those two principles and balancing those two principles together and letting the other person behave how they're going to behave is the best way to handle, let's be honest, a crappy situation. And hopefully over time, and I found this to be true, they meet you there.
Right.
And a crappy situation turns into a supportive situation. And maybe your child doesn't even remember the crappy part.
Okay. Thank you. Next question.
What to say to the kids if they can't accept the divorce? How to explain lovingly and reassuringly that staying together is no longer an option? How to show them that even though their desire for having both parents at the same time is completely understandable, it is impossible.
Okay, so here's my bias. You got 80% of the way there with this question. Mm-hmm. Like the question itself is a blueprint and outlines an understanding of the things that need to be discussed and talked about. Yeah. And so, first of all, I'm a big believer in that we overthink what's the right way to say things, and we wring our hands and we psych ourselves up, when generally candor, like conciseness and candor are two good rules of thumb.
Yeah.
And so
with love, right?
With love, absolutely. Yeah. Not cold and detached and let's get it over with.
Right.
But conciseness and candor with love is powerful. And people will attach to something short and to the point and genuine more than a meandering, hope we get there and find the right thing to say along the way. So first of all, how to say to them, even though their desire for having both parents at the same time is completely understandable, it is impossible, say that, right? It is understandable that you want to keep us together. That makes sense. And I understand that that's the desire of your heart. It's impossible, right? And here's why. And honestly, the way we did it is framing this as we're doing this because it's the most supportive thing we can do for our family. This is the choice we're making for peace, love, security, and support. And you don't have to get them to understand it all in one fell swoop, but helping them to recognize, like, this was not your doing, this is something that we decided together for the health and well-being of the family, like, and putting it in those terms. And it's not spin doctoring it, it's being honest. It's being honest in a healthy and loving and supportive way.
Yeah. Well, and I think the phrase, like, for the sake of the children or for keeping the family together. And I had a friend say to me, and it was such a paradigm shift. She was like, Alicia, you guys are still a family. It's just a family that operates in two households.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think because of the wounds and the hurt and how much contention so often pops up, that's the way we interpret that decision.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not the norm for those reasons.
Right, but I do think, listen, there are times where you can't function as a family, right? Where one parent isn't safe, right?
Is physically, mentally, emotionally abusive, right?
In most cases, something you said to me, will still be a family, it's just going to look different, was incredibly healing and powerful and helpful for me. And frankly, that's how we've approached it, is we're still a family. Yeah. And supporting the relationship of the children with with the other parent, and making sure that, like, okay, whatever issues you and I have, don't spill out onto the children. They're not the therapist, they're not there for me to vent to. I'm here to support your relationship with them and vice versa, is such a way to smooth things out. People are so concerned for the well-being of the kids, but when you treat it like that and you approach it like that with that level of respect, they adapt and they thrive. And
there is a way to create emotional security in this transition, in this environment, in the same way that we do it in any other dynamic is also with this. And so at times when our kids have been sad or unsure, or we just say, that's okay. I understand, that you feel that way. And they're like, but what if I don't want to go do XYZ thing? And we say, well, then you don't have to, And like, you let it be okay that the emotions are what they are.
Yeah.
And you don't try to whitewash it. You don't try to change it. You don't say, well, you need to be better or you need to pretend. It's like, it just is what it is, and that's okay. And then when you create that sort of emotional security, you can move through it, and it's okay. It creates emotional safety. So how do you keep a healthy balance between making sure your kids know and believe deep in their heart that the divorce wasn't because of them, without harping on it and maybe planting the idea in their head?
Like with Inception? So first of all, I don't know that children, generally speaking, are familiar with the idea, methinks thou dost protest too much. I think with children, you can repeat helpful, supportive, nurturing ideas without it backfiring. That said, you probably don't want to live in that space of constantly talking about this point over and over and over again. So here's what I would say. Honestly, it depends on the level of reassurance that your kids need. Okay? They may believe you the first time you tell them. And if that's the case, and you can tell that that's the case, and you revisit it later and the idea is still totally stuck, you're on solid footing. If you've got a child who is prone to blame themselves for the things that happen, or that if they had just been different, then there would have been a different outcome, assuring them that they're loved, that they're worthy, that they belong, and that, again, nothing they did is what brought this on. You may have to revisit that several times. But the rule of thumb is, what does your child need, not what's the magic number of times to do this.
Yeah, and so building on that concept, it's a matter of staying emotionally attuned to your children. And, life happens, and it's overwhelming, and it's exhausting, and life falls apart or feels like it's falling apart, and maybe multiple areas at the same time. So it's not your job as a parent to be like, I am 100% attuned to my child at all times, right? But staying attuned the majority of the time, knowing the emotional climate of your child, asking them questions of what's going on for them and how they're feeling and what their life experience is. By talking with them, you will know.
Yeah.
Like, do they need more reassurance in this area? Or do I not even need to bring it up, right? Because the answer is, that is going to be completely different for different children.
Yeah.
And here's something I strive to do as a parent that creates connection and emotional closeness. Because we as the parents do have more life experience, but they have a better understanding of their emotional needs and who they are and how they want to be supported. And nobody likes to be told what to do or how to do something.
Yeah.
And so instead of being like, hey, are you feeling this way? Is this what's going on for you?
Or do this or stop that.
Right.
Or, yeah.
Of just asking them questions.
Yeah.
Asking them questions about their life and their worldview. And when they say something to you, you say, hey, that's really interesting. Can you tell me some more about that? Or, so what does that feel like to you? Or what does that mean to you?
Well, and this is a question not just for kids. This is good for all relationships of, I want to be here for you, and I want to support you. I'm just not sure what you need. How can I best be here for you?
Yeah.
And what's wild is I've asked that of our children who are minors, and generally speaking, they have some sort of idea.
Yeah.
Even if the answer is, I want to eat ice cream and cuddle with my stuffed animal while watching a show with you, I'm like, great.
Yeah.
But they're in tune with those needs, like you were saying. Now, we're just skimming the surface. We dive deep in a couple of online video courses on our membership site. Successful Step Families is one, and Hope After Divorce is another. We put a lot of work into this, and there's so much rich content and material there. So if you are in a co-parenting or blended family situation, we invite you to check that out by trying out our membership site. Link is right here and in the description below. Now, we're going to keep these Ask Us Anything videos coming. So what questions do you have for us to answer about co-parenting or anything else? Let us know right down below. Until next time, folks.
Keep shining. We need your light.